Personally, I feel like what creates my identity is my family, more specifically my mother, um, my friends, um, and I believe like professors that I have a high respect for, or any person older than me or the same age as me that I have a high respect for. I believe helps create somewhat of my identity, and also um, just things that I've gathered about myself throughout the years. Um, just me weeding out what it is that I like, what it is that I don't like, and knowing how to grow from those observations. I would say no, just because I'm stubborn and someone once told me I kind of go to the beat of my own drum, so like I don't really do things. I don't necessarily do things for other people in terms of like what they want me to do, especially if it's like taking me completely out of my norm or completely out of myself, because I just, for whatever reason, have a really hard time faking it. And my mother always tells me the saying, fake it until you make it, but just for whatever reason, that's just not something that I've been able to do, because it just genuinely does something to myself of feeling like I'm not being true to myself. But if I feel like it's something that is a small adjustment, and if it's really going to not necessarily make or break my career or position in whatever job I have, but if it's just gonna make the process go a little smoother, then I will consider it and maybe alter it to where it's a happy medium between what I feel is myself and what that employer is expecting of me. Um, it was a time where I worked over the summer at a summer camp, and a part of my evaluation process, one of my, I guess, unit supervisors said that a lot of people didn't appreciate that I didn't smile. And it wasn't like smiling less than the other people who I worked with, but it was just more so that like they just wanted me to smile, because I made my own observations on that. Um, and I would never see anybody just like blatantly just smiling idle, like sitting idle, just smiling. Like that was just not something that I observed. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that that was something that was being put in my evaluation more than my general overall work ethic. Um, and that was something that they wanted me to do, to smile more. Um, and it wasn't necessarily that I was like an angry person or I didn't like going to work, but I just don't feel like if I don't have a reason to be smiling other than like I'm really happy or I'm find something really funny, then why am I smiling? It's kind of weird. So I kind of just, whenever I saw someone higher up, I was just like, oh hey, how are you? And then go back to, I guess, my resting bitch face. Uh, I guess because I do have a very prominent resting bitch face, but that's not something that I believe I can control. I think it's just kind of like how my face is. If you look back at like really young pictures of me, like 2 years old, I have resting bitch face. So it's not something that I'm just like, oh, like I just want to look like a bitch to some people, or I want to look intimidating to some people. But over the years, as me going to young adulthood, I realized that I can't control how people perceive me, um, and I can only, you know, show them that I'm not like a mega bitch, even though sometimes I can be. Um, I am genuinely a nice person. I will do anything for anybody that I care for. My friends know that if they're ever in need, I will give them the shirt off of my back and my last meal if I need to, if I feel like they were in more need than I was. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I've heard that people considered me to be intimidating, but I don't go out of my way to have that facade of someone that is intimidating. But like I said, I can't control how other people perceive me. I can only, you know, do what I can to show that I am an actual kind person and I care about what I do. So I feel like with the comment of me not smiling, that was something that got placed on gender, because I don't think that comment would have come up with someone who was male and didn't smile. I think men who do have roles in like child care or camp counselors, they get a more, I guess, pat on the back or the gold star because you don't genuinely see men in those roles. So if he doesn't come to work smiling, then that's not as big as a deal because he's coming to work with children. So that's already like his golden ticket, um, as being, I don't know, having more approval or what's the word, validation, I guess. Whereas women, you're kind of like supposed to be the bubbly, outgoing, and cheery, go-lucky type of person when you're a camp counselor, but not every day or not every time. Like not all the time is there a reason to be sitting there just smiling. Like I think just doing this all day is very unusual. I would think that someone was a serial killer if they just literally sat and smiled all day for no goddamn reason. Like that's weird. Oh, am I supposed to curse? But yeah, I just think it, like that was something that I didn't really understand why it was a part of my evaluation because it genuinely had nothing to do with like my work ethic in terms of me being a camp counselor and like making sure the kids were safe and making sure that everybody had their fanny pack, that had their EpiPens and their allergy medicine and all of those things, and making sure that the kids weren't going batshit crazy every day. Like I don't think me smiling was as valuable as the work that I actually do. So I just didn't think that was a very good evaluation that I got as a female because I don't think that would have ever been said or that would have ever been a comment made to a male in that position. Well, just thinking back on all of the positions and jobs that I've had over the years, I can ever really remember having one male authority figure as like my boss or supervisor. Um, and I don't know, he kind of, not to say he was nonchalant, but he had a very chill demeanor about him. And I'm kind of the opposite in terms of like when I'm stressed out or when something is going on and I just don't understand why it's going on. Um, and he was kind of always like, you gotta relax. Like, if you're making it a bigger deal than what it is, just calm down. But he did mention, you know, my, I guess, attitude in the sorts. I was very young. This was like the first job I ever had. I was like 15, 16. So I wasn't really used to having authority figures over me other than like my mom. Um, but he was just kind of like, she's a really good worker. So that's why I keep her around because she's really good at what she does despite her attitude. So that was something that I noticed in terms of his authority as my supervisor. And after that, I think that was the only time I had a male supervisor. As I've gone in positions, I worked at the YMCA near my house, and that supervisor, I don't know if it was just our zodiac signs weren't lined up because she was also a Virgo, as am I, or I just really don't know what the disconnect was with that woman. But me and her maybe 3 times a week butted heads on something, and it could range from me feeling like I was overwhelmed and not put in a proper ratio with my group. The ratio at that job was supposed to be like a counselor was 1 to 10 kids, and on an average day, it was like me and 15. So that was something else that we argued about. It was her feeling like I didn't say things in a way in a way that she wanted me to say them, and me feeling like, well, just because you want me to say it that way doesn't mean that I necessarily need to say it that way, or not say it at all. And it was kind of more of me over the 2 years of working there, um, kind of getting fed up with the BS that the whole camp itself was put under. So me and her very much butted heads a lot of the times. But also she realized that I was a very hard worker. When I set forth to do a job, I do a job. So I feel like on that strength, she didn't really fire me, because I feel like the few times that we did get into it, she could have very well just said, "Yeah, I gotta let you go," but she didn't. Which, not to boast about or brag about, it's not something I brag about. But at the same time, it just was a very toxic environment, and I felt like she wasn't a very nurturing, and that could be a contradiction because she was a woman, and to say a woman should be nurturing, um, as a feminist is, I don't know, I guess kind of contradictory, but she just wasn't. Overall, she just wasn't very productive in that position, um, and especially not for me, because I just couldn't tolerate it. It was just very toxic. But then I went on to working at another camp, and I had two supervisors who were also women, and the two women had different personality styles. One of them was kind of like a harpering, like, I guess, like, she had to call you out on every little thing, just to make sure the hierarchy was like in place. And then the other one was kind of just like sort of chill. She would like not so much as chill and like let you get away with stuff, but like she'll like let you slide if you're like a little late, or you had an unexpected something come up and you needed to leave work early. She would be kind of more understanding on that than the other one. But overall, like, I just think in general, I'm not really meant to have an authority figure. I'm kind of like I said, I go to the beat of my own drum, so I don't really like being told what to do, especially when I feel like it's stupid what's being told for me to do. So I know in that retrospect, the whole having a boss, a 9 to 5 thing, is not going to work out for me too well. I think I'm more of the entrepreneur role. Um, yeah, so authority figures in general, just, I really feel like don't work for me, but I'll get through it to get the paycheck. So, well, I started working when I was 16, um, and in that program that I worked in, most of them were black, so it wasn't really like a huge thing. Like, it wasn't really like dealing with microaggressions or anything like that. Um, I would say overall, me being a black woman, um, I do get the "you're intimidating" title all the time. Um, a lot of people that I've worked with in terms of coworkers have said, like, in the beginning, like, I didn't think I was gonna like you, just because like you seemed like you came across as a bitch, and the look of my face, thing. But then once they actually start talking to me and like seeing how my personality is, they're like, you're really a cool person, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Um, but I guess that just goes into the whole thing of not judging a book by its cover, but that is also a contradiction because you have to judge a book by a cover to know whether you want to engage or not. Um, but yeah, I think most of the criticism or critiques came from my coworkers versus bosses, um, on the sense that I had a very strong personality, and I'm kind of a person who, if the job's gonna get done right, then I'm the one doing the job, type of thing. Like, I don't know, I'm like very sort of kind of type A type of person. So if I saw something going on in the workplace where like a kid was not doing what they were supposed to be doing, or uh, they were talking back to another counselor, and I felt like that counselor wasn't like stepping up for themselves. I would step in and try to like reinforce that authority role between child and counselor. Um, when it came time for the kids to have downtime, and we kind of like didn't know what the kids should do in that downtime, I was the one coming up with the games. So I'm kind of like I take the lead on things when I feel like that lead isn't being done, or that role isn't being filled. So a lot of people do think that I'm like bossy, but it's not necessarily me trying to be bossy. It's just me trying to cover everyone's ass, including my own. Um, but as a black woman, that can get very stressful to feel like you're kind of carrying the weight of your own problems and then everyone else's problem. I do remember a time specifically where I was like in a staff meeting, and it was like an emergency staff meeting because apparently like none of the staff or counselors was like up to par with how they were supposed to be working. Um, and I remember just being completely overwhelmed by feeling like I was alone in my group and none of my other co-counselors were stepping up to the plate in terms of them taking some of the work. And I just remember just like crying because I was so like frustrated. And one of my co-counselors was like, "Why did you cry in the meeting?" And I was like, "That's just how frustrated I was." And they couldn't fathom, or like they were just super perplexed about why I cried. And he made it seem like I was doing it to make everyone else look bad, when it was like, no, like I cried because I was frustrated. It wasn't because I was sad or I was trying to get sympathy. It was because I was genuinely frustrated to the point where like either I was going to quit or I was going to punch somebody in the face. So I'd rather cry to avoid either two of those because I need a job and I also don't want to get charges pressed against me for punching somebody in the face. So on that, I feel like black women in the workforce, we have to work 10 times harder than our counterparts, that's being black men, white women, any other race. I feel like we have to work 10 times harder in whatever job or position we have because people doubt us all the time. And I feel like that's something that I try to make up for, so people don't have to worry about my reliability or my ability to do their job at hand. Um, so